Iburu, Iboya, Ibucheche, everybody in Cyberland. It's a fair babalao, at least I hope so. Omodu Ondileke coming at you with a podcast. Like I told you guys before, the real talk is real. Hey, so something I wanted to bring up to each and every one of you is one, you can always find me. You can always shoot me a comment. You know, these podcasts are on YouTube as well. So you can always leave a comment there. You can always ask for my email. You can always just dig in, right? Go ahead and challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to be knowledgeable. Knowledge is power. And I tell many people that the pen is mightier than the sword, right? That's an old phrase from the old Zifa. But it's an old phrase that even if you don't believe in this spirituality or this walk, you got to understand that, you know, you can use as much brute strength as you want in this world. But if you don't have the intellect, if you don't have the ability to truly put pen to paper, and you don't start to kind of play within the realm that needs to be played for success, that, you know, you're not going to really make it, right? That's just real talk, right? You can believe in everything you want to believe. But at the end of the day, if it's not vectored, you know, thoughtfulness, if it's not deliberate planning, if it's not you really kind of taking an invested interest in building that knowledge base so that you can be the best version of you, then what's the point? What's the point of it all? Right. So I wanted to do this particular video because I think it's important. But I'm gonna throw the disclaimer out there that listen, this is not a replacement for your elders, you know, consultations. This is not a replacement for, you know, hey, I heard on a podcast that this was what right looks like. You know, have some respect, you know, for your spiritual houses. If your spiritual houses ain't working out for you, you know, I hate saying it, but, you know, maybe sometimes it's just best to move on, right? Don't suffer in silence, right? Make sure you're getting what you need, you know, in order for you to grow. Again, it goes back to knowledge is power. If you don't feel like, you know, you're growing, then that's something that you need to have a conversation with your godfather, godmother, whoever it is, because that's what matters. If you feel like something is lacking, you know, make the conscious effort of asking the questions or approaching the problem, right, with your elders, because I think that's needed. And I think a lot of it we fear, and fear is not something that you need to have. The orishas and the eguns, and you know, they're not here to truly, you know, separate us. They're here to unite us, right? And if anybody is holding you hostage spiritually, you need to make the conscious effort of saying, you know what, I'm not gonna stand for this anymore. I'm gonna truly, you know, do my best and my due diligence, right, with my spiritual house in order to truly make it work, because that's important. I will tell you, spiritually is important, because what happens is a lot of times people join these spiritual journeys and they don't really know where they're going, right? And I love my faith. I love Ifa. I love the Orishas and the Eguns. But I think we get into this place where we don't know what's next, right? So I'm gonna lay out a spiritual path that I use with my Ile in order to truly develop them, in order to truly, you know, expand on the spiritual nature that you know they've invested in, right? And I'm not one to hold no one back, right? Because I think we need to be more independent. I think we need to build the future of this faith with folks that are empowered, folks that want to lead, let them lead. People who want to follow, let them follow. You know, great leaders were also great followers at one point, and I think that's important to harness. So let me begin to tell you that every Ile does things differently, and I'm just an exception, right? I am one perspective of millions, right? And I say that because I'm going to explain to you what I do with my spiritual house, right? And how I manage that. And then, that's something that you need to reflect on, and maybe you need to build something similar around yourself, right? Maybe you're the one that you truly love your spiritual house. You're not getting what you need in your spiritual house, but you have the right to pave your own path as well, right? So I'm just gonna give you a little bit of advice, right? And again, this is just real talk. All right. Here's the no kidding, you know, what everyone needs to know. When you come in this faith, you come in this faith blind. You come in this faith giving a certain monetary investment with a return that you're expecting. You receive your warriors, you receive your mano de orula. That's step one, right? Your hand of orumila, right? Your hand of orumila is the foundation to your spiritual growth, right? Now, I know what many are going to say. Maybe you didn't receive mano de orula and you decided to grow, and continue to grow, without receiving mano de orula. Because of orumila, right? It's not unknown that people sometimes have gotten their guardians pulled through the meredelegun, which are the chorus shells from babaloshas or iyalocha or olorishas, right? Depending on what lineage you follow. So, it's clear to me, and I think it's clear to many that nonetheless we find ourselves sometimes in a conundrum. And that's the reason why I'm telling you my perspective. The foundation is your warriors, your hand of Ifa. Okay. And it's not that it's wrong if you didn't get it and you still push forward. But no, you still need to hear the advice of Odu Ifa on how to best maneuver and how to best make yourself well-rounded so that you can truly understand the destiny that you are entitled to understand, right? The concepts of Ifa tell us the whole story from when your Ori, transitioned from Olorun down to this world. And that's very important to understand. So one way or another, get your hand of Ifa. If you don't have it, just get it. Because it's going to give you another Ita that you're going to need to understand that's going to drive you from this world to the next. And it'll also explain to you what was that journey from Olorun to here. That is critical to your growth. All right, now let's say you have now received your warriors and your hand of Ifa. And now you're wondering what's next. The next thing that I truly believe that the right answer is that you need to walk away with the Teja de Egun, the tile of Egun, a consecrated tile with Odus on them, Odu Ifas on them, okay, that begin to harness and begin to create a well-rounded connection with your spiritual ancestors by way of Ifa, right? Now you are complementing, right, your hand of Ifa, which gave you a few things: your destiny, your guardian Orisha. What Orisha is governing your head? And now you have the connection of the Eguns. You have the trifecta, people, the trifecta, the Eguns, the Orishas, and now you have the advice of Orumila, Ifa, right? So now you are walking well armed and ready to move forward. But then a lot of people say, well, what's the next step after that? Right? How do I best pave that road? Well, your next pavement, right, or that next step on your yellow brick road to Oz, right, is going to be the spiritual misa, right? A spiritual mass, right, that begins to explain your spiritual framework. Who are these ancestors that walk with you? Who are these spirits that need to be represented? How do I formulate this thing called a boveda or a spiritual altar? How do I expand my spirituality beyond, the literature of the oracles of Meredelegun and Ifa? There's a connection there with the Eguns that are 100% needed. So with that, you need to receive a spiritual misa. And I think that is super critical, right? Super critical, because that spiritual misa will also dictate other paths within the Egun walk, right? It will dictate and it will begin to create another kind of an off-road, right, to that path of your destiny, so that you can be better and stronger, right, than you were before. Think about it. Think about if you were driving on a highway, right, and your gas tank is at a quarter tank, right? You're at a quarter tank of gas and you need to get some gas. Well, you're going to pull off and you're going to refuel. Sometimes in our destiny, we need to take another path in order to refuel, and then we get back on the path. You get back on that interstate, right? And now you got a full tank of gas. That's the spiritual misa does, right? Because it tells you things like, hey, should I get scratched in Palo Moyumbe? It's important for our guardians or our eguns to better advise us there. And then we complement that with Ifa. Ifa will sometimes say or won't say anything at all, right? And sometimes Ifa may just say, no, you have no business, continuing your path in the egun world, because maybe you're just a born spiritualist. Maybe you have that ability and that strength, right, in order to move forward. And that matters. So then we begin to kind of even touch on other aspects, right? Let's say you do have to get scratched, or let's say if I said don't get scratched, but now the spiritual mass says you need to get scratched. Well, now we go back to the oracles and we begin to ask the questions like, okay, there's a conflict of advice, and you figure out what that answer is through Ifa, and you move forward again in order to ensure that you never get off of the path to your destiny. That's the key. That's the reason why we'll give Ifa the final say. So now, let's say you got that all squared away. What does your Ita say? What does your Ita and your hand of Orumila truly say and dictate? Are there things that you should be doing or receiving in Ifa to better strengthen you? You got to remember, you walking into a spiritual faith where you need the reinforcements, right? You need to ensure that, you are reinforcing every aspect of life, right? Because Orisha are nature, right? The powers of Ifa begin to harness the power of love, prosperity, health, stability, right? And it begins to draw in all this energy to make you a better person, to set you back up for success. So then I ask myself, is everyone doing this or not? And again, I'm not throwing anybody under the table. I'm just saying, I think these are important milestones that need to be met in order for us to truly understand where we're going and how we're getting there. Now, let's say you have your warriors, your hand of Ifa, you got your Teja de Egun, which is your tile of Eguns, right? And now you got your spiritual Misa. Here's the other piece. And this is something where I challenge all Ilas, right? I challenge all Babalaos. I challenge all, priests and priestesses. Are you learning how to use these items? Do you know how to attend your warriors? Do you know, what does right look like? Do you know how to use your Teja de Egun? Are you following the advice from the spiritual Misa that was given to you? Are you doing the things that you need to do to continue to grow? That's the key. That is the key. All right. Now, let's say, now that you've done all that, let's say that everything is moving in the right direction. Let's say you're getting the advice, you're getting the consults from your elders, everything is looking good, and now you're ready to receive bigger and better things, right? Olokun, right? Like Orisha Oku, right? Are Orishas, or even Babaluaye, right? San Lázaro, what a lot of people like to say. Are orishas that reinforce our well-being. And you begin to see that these three particular orishas are three, Orisha Oku, Olokun, and Babaluaye, become very fundamental to our foundation. Not everybody has to receive them right away, but some people may have to. But remember, here's the other piece. And again, this is just real talk. If you're receiving things and you don't even know how to use them, you don't even know how to manipulate such a strong word, but you got to know what energy you have there and how to use it in order to, reinforce yourself, right? This is like you being a knight in shining armor, right? But you don't have the armor on. You got the armor on the floor, but you're going to go to war, but you don't have the armor on. That's what happens when you receive orishas or you receive divinities, better yet, that you're not using properly or you don't know how to use them. You have your armor on the floor and you're not protected. You got to learn how to use those things. So I find myself in this other conundrum, right? Are people receiving things and don't even know how to use them? That's real talk, right? That's real talk. Those should all be red flags for you. Those all should be, hey, I'm running for the hills because I'm receiving things and I'm not getting the guidance that I need. So where is that spiritual investment going? Let's be real. This faith, has some money tied to it, right? Animals cost a lot of money, herbs cost a lot of money. In today's day and age, inflation, right? We got to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and our investment properly. This is not a faith to be toyed with. And for those that are toying with it and those who are using it for monetary gain to the point where it's borderline abuse, that's something that is very disheartening for me. So we look at these orishas, right? Or we look at these divinities of fundamentals and we say, okay, what are they? Right? So we understand the stability that Orisha Oku brings. We understand the health and prosperity that Olokun brings. We understand Babalu Aye is bringing us health, right? We understand that Orisha, any Orisha that's fundamental, right, to our growth has a purpose. And what does that purpose truly mean? And that's what I need you all to understand. Try to be careful about receiving things and not understanding why you are receiving it. And does it line up with the characteristics of that Orisha? Are you being fed, right, some misinformation? Because, God knows this is the age of misinformation and everybody has an agenda and everybody's trying to move forward one way, shape, or form. And it's sad, but it's true. And this is real talk. You guys wanted to hear this. And I'm just telling you for what it is, right? No different than, I've advised maybe a million times, hey, listen, I've been to Cuba multiple times, but I speak Spanish. Why is it that we have people going to Cuba that don't speak Spanish? But yet they're going to listen to the advice. They're going to work on a translator. They're going to work on somebody that's going to constantly relay information, and maybe information is missed. All those things are scary. All those things I'm just a little bit perplexed on. Those are the things that you got to be careful about, right? Because again, your spiritual journey matters. So let's say warriors are there, hand of Ifa is there, right? You received your Teja de Egun. You have your spiritual misas. You are now receiving orishas that are fundamental, right? We call them orishas of Adimus. We call them a lot of different things. But we start to receive some of these orishas. Now, in Ifa, we have other orishas as well, whether it be Orun, whether it be Ode, whether it be Osain, whether it be Odudua, whether it be, you name it, we mount it, right? It could be Inchio signs. It could be different issues. It can be, man, I mean, the list can go on and on and on and on, right? But then you got to, again, I go back to the same concept. Hey, what are we doing and how are we doing it? Now, for the spiritual journey, I will tell you that each person has an ebo, right? If life is throwing curveballs at you and you find yourself in a predicament where you have all these items and you feel like things are not producing what they do, every person that receives a hand of Ifa has an Odun of Ifa that has a specified ebo. An ebo that we do on Opun Ifa, which is the tablet, the wooden tablet with the powder called Iyerosun that is manipulated by Babalaos in order to break any barriers that come your way. That is a lethal thing that you need to understand you have in your back pocket. Some houses like to just get out front and break those barriers immediately by performing those ebos, right? Some houses hold it for a breaking case of an emergency. I will tell you, I am a breaking case of an emergency guy. So I'm not going to charge you X amount of money to do an ebo, right? When maybe everything in life is going well, maybe everything is moving forward, maybe everything is producing, and we can use that as a break in case of an emergency, right? So that we can save you. Maybe you don't receive the orishas of Adimus right away so that they can save you later on if everything is producing itself and everything is moving forward in the right direction. But if it's not, then it's time to do that ebo of Opungifa for your Odu so that you can break through some of those barriers. So that's just a little bit of advice there. Now, let's get into, now let's say you want to be that Babalao. You want to be that Olorisha, right? That Babalocha, Yalocha, right? You want to be that priest and priestess in this faith because you feel that now you can handle it. Now you are ready. So let's talk about what does ready look like. If you have not learned your Ita and hand of Ifa, what makes you think you're going to now learn the Ita of 5, 6, 7 other Orishas? Right? Because that's what crowning does. You crown your Orisha and you get a lot of advice from a lot of different sources, right? Unless you're gonna crown in a lineage of Isheshe, right? Which is traditional, where they only crown one, you still have an Ita. So have you prepared yourself and do you think you are ready to truly be a priest and a priestess? In addition, you are going to bring home a lot of different hardware, right? Things that are consecrated, items that need to be taken care of, things that need to be addressed. Are we doing the right thing or not? Are you ready to truly make that leap? Are you looking at the spiritual investment? Are you putting the cart in front of the horse, right? An old saying. The horse has got to pull the cart. The cart doesn't pull the horse, right? You got to make sure that you're ready. You got to make sure you have a place for these beautiful orishas that you're bringing home, right? Now, let's say you want to go become a babalao. Very, very touchy topic. Why? Because some people will say you got to go get crowned before you become a babalao. Some people say you can go to Ifa direct. Some people will say, they can say whatever they want to say. You know who truly knows the answer to that is the person that has laid out your destiny, Orumila, right? If you want to become a Bawalao, let's say you're a man, you're in good standings, you got good ethical and moral values, and you want to become a Bawalao, hey, Boruboya, that's a beautiful thing. But make sure that you are ready for the responsibility. All right. And if you think, hey, I don't want to get crowned, I want to just go to Ifa, then you need to ask Orumila. You need to consult with your elders. You need to make sure that you fully have a full understanding of where you're going and how you're getting there, because that matters, right? The roads that you take that take you off of your destiny can be either helpful or detrimental to your destiny. Understand where you're going, how you're getting there, and understand the whys behind it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying you need to understand. But here's the other thing. If you're going to become a priest and a priestess, don't you think you should know how to lead? Don't you think you should know the simple things that this faith has to offer? Maybe you should know the names of the ingredients. Maybe you should know the animals. Maybe you should know the characteristics of the orishas. Maybe, you should know more about you. Maybe you need to look in the mirror and reflect, right? Because now you're going to be responsible for other people looking towards you for advice and guidance. And can you give it or can you not? That's the key, right? So do you think it's all fun and games to be a priest and a priestess? I will tell you, and I'm not going to speak on the side of Ocha, the Orisha side, crowning your guardian Orisha, but I'm going to speak on the side of Ifa, Mabawalao. Mabawalao has to study day in and day out, has to constantly reflect, has to constantly throw down the ecoles, which are the chains, right? That have the 8 quads, 4 on one side, 4 on another, right? In order to ensure that, that our days are moving forward And we're doing everything that we need to in the eyes of Orumila. A Babalao is the fine print is real, and you only have a certain amount of time to get your stuff together. And while I'm on the topic of the priest and priestesses, and this is for everybody, you got to understand, you got to go through ceremonies like the knife ceremony. You got to do your eboses. If you're a babalao, you got to do an ebo on all your signs. And if you're a priest or a priestess in the side of the orishas, you got to not only do your crowning ceremony, but then you got to do your ebo, right? That's going to cost half of, your crowning, and you're going to need to get scratched in order to give recognition to your eguns, but it doesn't mean that you have to work palo. That's not an automatic. And these are a lot of different things that you have to start to think, and you got to work through your mind, and you got to make sure that you are capable and able to receive all these things and do this. But not only that, for priests and priestesses, you got to go through the knife ceremony, right? And you got to understand what that is and when that's marked. That's something that is very fundamental for all priests and priestesses. Go through that knife ceremony. So, I say this to say that, our faith is very complex, but the roadmap is pretty clear, right? So let me just do a quick recap. Warriors, hand of Ifa. Get your tile of Egun, get your spiritual misa. Understand whether or not you have to get scratched or not, and start to walk that land to the capabilities and to the responsibilities that, the Eguns are walking you through with the consultation of Ifa. Start to receive the armor, which are the orishas of Adimu, that are going to be best able to assist you and push you forward so that you can walk this road strong. And as you begin to do that and things begin to flow and everything is great, if you get into a bad place, you do your ebo of your odu. And then if you want to be a priest and a priestess, then iburu boya, more power to you. We need great priests and priestesses in this faith in order for our heritage and our culture to move forward. Then jump at it. But understand that you are taking on a lot of responsibility and you need to be ready for it. It's not to scare you. It's not to say that don't do it. It's not to say any of that. But I want to make sure that we're all looking at this in the correct light. But I wanted to ensure that we spoke about this. I wanted to ensure that we were in the right place. But I also wanted to ensure you that there's an out, right? If you find yourself trapped ever, you always got a friend right here, right? Odile que got you. Just shoot me an email, right? Let's talk your problems out. Even we need counselors and we need people that we can confide in. And I do that for many, whether it's babalaos, whether it's priests and priestesses of orishas, whether it's just people that are having hard times trying to communicate with their ile, with their elders. You're not alone. And that's the key. And that's the real talk. So hopefully this podcast kind of enlightened you a little bit. Maybe it made you, question a couple of things where you need to go ahead and research and maybe go back to an elder and talk some things out. And that's okay because you are responsible for you, right? Nobody else. Your elders are there. Yes, they're responsible as well. But believe it or not, at the end of the day, if you are not moving in a direction that you need to move at, and you know this, you also have a responsibility to that destiny, not just the elders. So with that said, hey, Buru, Iboya, Ibuche, everybody in Cyberland, a lot of love to each and every one of you. Leave me a comment. I'm on YouTube. Find me out there. And with that said, Iburu, Iboya, Ibuche.